Is there hope?
All things are possible through him.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're not looking at history. We're not even looking at a future threat assessment. We are looking at a live ticking clock, a countdown to what the intelligence community is calling Operation Zero Point. The sources we have, they're not theoretical. This is the final intelligence estimate. The tone is beyond severe. This isn't a theory of grid failure. We are analyzing the mechanics of a confirmed firing solution.
And that phrase, firing solution, is absolutely key. We can't lose the gravity of it. In military terms, a firing solution means the target is acquired, the math is done, and the weapon is ready to launch. Applied here to our own infrastructure, it means the adversary's prep work is complete. The malware is stable. The timing is set, and the physical effect is now, well, mathematically predictable. Our mission today is very specific, very granular. It's focused on the Grants Pass and Merlin area of operations in southern Oregon. We're taking all these inputs, the React-2 shell infection data, the SuperGrok models on civilian collapse, the cascade funnel analysis, and synthesizing it all. This is a final command estimate for the garrison commander of a Tier 1 critical infrastructure defense team. This entire deep dive is custom tailored to provide actionable intelligence for surviving the kinetic snap, which is the deliberate, coordinated, and imminent takedown of the Western Interconnection.
Okay, let's unpack this with the urgency it demands. The foundation of this whole thing, it isn't a missile, it's a massive, patient cyber breach. We have to start with the threat vector. Understanding the cyber kill chain tells us exactly when the physical collapse begins. So the entry point is a vulnerability so severe it has a perfect score. We're talking about React-2 shell CVE 2025-55182. It's a CVSS 10.0, a perfect 10. For our listeners, can you break down what makes this particular flaw the perfect weapon for this kind of attack?
It was a perfect storm, really. It was ubiquitous, it was stealthy, and it was right next door to operational control. The flaw is in the Next.js framework, which is used everywhere, especially in what analysts call last-mile utility dashboards.
What's a last-mile dashboard? Like my local utilities website.
Yeah, exactly. Customer billing portals, outage maps, even internal HR sites for employees. The core vulnerability is in something called the flight protocol. It's how the server efficiently packages data to send to your browser. The adversary doesn't need a password. They don't need credentials. They send one single, specially crafted HTTP request. And because of how that flight protocol works, the server processes the malicious code before it even checks to see who sent it.
So it's unauthenticated remote code execution. They can run commands just by sending a bad packet to the website.
Precisely. And our sources confirm React-2 shell beacons are active right now, originating from 3 major regional transmission organizations. And critically, we have confirmed compromise in 142 municipal utility dashboards across the entire Western Interconnection. These are the small, local entry points that lead right into the heart of the network.
142, that's a huge number. But you said last-mile sites. Those are on the corporate side, right? The IT network. That should be air-gapped from the actual machinery, the OT side that controls the power flow. How does the malware jump that gap?
And that is the critical target. The one choke point they spent years identifying. It's the data historian servers. Think of the historian as a translator, an essential but often overlooked translator. These are the only machines in the entire system that are designed to bridge the corporate internet, the IT side, and the power plant controls, the OT or SCADA side. The historian's job is to continuously pull telemetry, data temperature, turbine speed, relay status from the physical world, and present it to the corporate network for analysis.
So the air gap is dead. It's dead because the historian is built to bridge it for business reasons.
It is the sanctioned breach, the official way across. Nuderat didn't have to perform some complex air gap jump. They just had to compromise the historian from the corporate network, which we know they did. The intelligence confirms they achieved this in at least 5 key instances across the WECC. The enemy is inside the lobby, they used the public elevator, and now they are picking the lock on the control room door.
Okay, the lock is picked. They have access to the SCADA systems. But the power doesn't just go out. The sources detail a very specific first move, the HMI blind. This sounds like pure information warfare, almost like Stuxnet.
It is exactly like Stuxnet.
Yeah.
The adversary's first goal is not destruction, it's paralysis. Cognitive overload. They know the grid operators rely completely on their human-machine interfaces, their HMIs, to see what's going on. Nuderat uses its new access through the historian to inject false data streams. It effectively freezes the web-based HMIs the operators are staring at.
So what does the operator actually see on their screen?
They see all green normal load. Everything looks perfect, stable frequency, good voltage, business as usual. But in reality, the malware is doing something else. It's sending false data to the automatic generation control system. That's the system that tells power plants how much juice to produce. The malware tells the generators to ramp down. That demand is dropping, but it's Christmas Eve. Demand is spiking because of holiday heating loads.
So the operator in the control room sees a perfectly stable grid, but they're completely blind to the fact that out in the real world, supply is cratering while demand is soaring.
And that is the critical juncture. That's where physics takes over. We call it the cascade funnel. As supply drops, the grid's frequency starts to fall. It drops below the mandated 60 hertz. Once it hits the safety threshold, usually around 59.5 hertz, the mechanical protective relays, they're basically giant circuit breakers, they trip automatically. They have to prevent the generators from tearing themselves apart. So one plant trips. The load it was carrying instantly shifts to its neighbors. They overload and trip. And that's the cascade. The sources project a rolling collapse that takes down the entire Western interconnection in about 12 minutes.
And while all this is happening, the cybersecurity teams are being actively distracted by something else entirely. Which brings us to this incredibly clever noodle rat decoy strategy.
It's textbook. A perfect example of dual-use camouflaged by the attacker time. The main payload is the Linux.noodlerat variant. It's a sophisticated state-sponsored tool. But what did they deploy first? Everywhere, making lots of noise. XMRig crypto miners.
Crypto miners, that's noisy. High CPU usage, heat, network traffic, it's easy to spot. Isn't that counterproductive for a stealth op?
That's the trap. And it's brilliant. They want the IT teams to find the crypto miner. A fatigued, maybe outsourced IT team runs a scan, sees the high CPU usage from XMRig, cleans it, and closes the ticket. They log it as a solved, criminal cryptojacking attempt. They report up the chain that the network is clean, and they go home for the holidays.
So they treat the symptom, but they completely miss the disease.
Precisely. Because hidden behind that noisy decoy is the real threat, the noodle rat sleeper. The malware is designed to look like legitimate, essential system processes. Things like kswap do or swashd, things that should be running. It even uses a technique called time stomping. It changes its own file creation date to match the day the operating system was installed. To a basic forensic scan, it's invisible. It's been there forever. This confirms they've moved from simple access to the much more dangerous phase of offensive preparation of the environment. The infiltration is over. The preparation is complete.
The stage is set. And the last piece is timing. The intelligence is so specific about this. Why Christmas Eve? Why 1700 PST?
It's about maximizing impact by exploiting human vulnerability. The 0 hour is projected for 1700 PST on December 24th. That window is the perfect overlap of physics and manpower. It's peak load, everyone's got holiday lights on, ovens running, heaters blasting, and it's also the staffing void. The Tier 1 response teams have gone home. Skeleton crews are left in charge. The attackers are leveraging the holiday lull to make sure the response time to the failure is tripled. It's psychological warfare.
Okay, so the sources then lay out the sequence of collapse. It's governed by physics, by battery life. They call it the cascade funnel. Let's map this out for the commander. T+0 is 1700 PST on December 24th. The grid trips. What happens first?
Well, the first domino to fall isn't even in the power grid. It's in the global financial system. At T plus 00.02, that's 2 minutes, we hit what they call the cash vacuum.
2 minutes. That's unbelievably fast. How is the financial system the first thing to break?
High-frequency trading algorithms. They're tied to the grid's frequency for timing. They're incredibly sensitive. The second that frequency drops below 59.8 hertz, which is instantaneous in a cascade, the algorithm sees system instability. They see risk. They automatically trigger a circuit break. Trading freezes. At the same time, locally, your credit card terminal, your ATM, they just die. Not from a total power loss, but because the noodle rat C2 traffic is causing so much ISP packet loss, the transaction just times out.
So it's an immediate, total economic reset.
It is. The economy reverts instantly to physical cash and barter, gold, silver, bullets, fuel. That's money now. Your credit card is just a piece of plastic. Your bank balance is an inaccessible number on a dead server. For the commander, this means the threat from opportunistic crime skyrockets from minute 3.
Okay, money's gone. Next, we lose communications. But not how you'd think. We enter the telecom zombie state at T plus 04.00. 4 hours.
Right. Your average cell tower has about 4 hours of battery backup. But the failure here isn't just about the batteries. The noodle rat command and control traffic, all that malware chatter, it's designed to overwhelm the backhaul fiber switching centers. This causes what's called congestion collapse before the batteries even run out.
So the tower has power, my phone has power, but the data pipe is clogged solid.
Exactly. Your phone shows 5 bars of 5G, the strongest signal ever, but nothing works. No data, no texts, no calls. It's a zombie state, and it's a deliberate psychological weapon. It gives people a false sense of security that help is on the way until it's too late. It ensures emergency recall plans fail.
So any plan that relies on a group text message is dead on arrival. What's the only thing left that works?
VHF and HF radio, analog, line of sight. That's it. That's what separates the coordinated teams from the isolated victims.
The next failure point is existential. Water.
At T plus U6.00, 6 hours in, you get hydraulic lock. Municipal water systems need electricity for the lift pumps that fill the water towers and create pressure. Those pumps are controlled by SCADA systems that are now offline. The water towers hold pressure for, maybe 4 to 6 hours. Then gravity takes over, the tanks drain, and the taps run dry.
And right after that, sanitation fails.
Yes. By T plus 12 hours, sanitation is gone. Sewage lift stations stop working, you get backflow, the cholera risk begins immediately. For the commander, water and sanitation become priority 1.
This already sounds like a nightmare, but the analysis gets darker. It points to a specific long-term impact for the Grants Pass area. This is the water hammer hypothesis.
This is what turns a bad situation into a strategic long-term kill. The intelligence suggests the malware targeting the water SCADA won't just shut the pumps off. It's designed to send rapid cycle on-off commands. It violently toggles loaders on-off, on-off, on-off. This creates a massive hydraulic shock wave, a water hammer, that slams back and forth through the pipes.
And that pressure wave is designed to find the weakest point and break it.
And the weakest point is the Rogue River intake choke point, the main artery for the whole town. The shock wave is projected to fracture the pipes at that intake. The final assessment is stark. This is not a 72-hour outage. This is a confirmed multi-month infrastructure kill.
Multi-month. That changes the entire mission for the garrison, Commander.
It does. It means Grants Pass is dry until federal help can arrive with heavy equipment to replace that intake. And that's not happening for a long, long time. The mission shifts from riding out a storm to indefinite fortress survival.
And while all this physical chaos is unfolding, the enemy has carved out a perfect kill zone on the interstate, the Sexton Dead Zone.
The geography here is critical. The cell tower on Sexton Mountain, north of Grants Pass on I-5, is projected to fail at T plus 1 hour. Because of the deep canyon, its failure creates an 8-mile communications black hole between Grants Pass and Wolf Creek. No signal gets in or out.
This isn't an accident, is it?
Not at all. This area is assessed as the primary hijack vector for Trend aragokinetic cells. They know that in that canyon, no one can call for help. They can set up roadblocks, ambush convoys, and operate with complete impunity, well outside the response window of local law enforcement.
So they're not just breaking things, they're actively shaping the battle space to their advantage. Okay, now we have to shift from the physical collapse to the social one. This is based on the SuperGrok agent-based models. And the core concept here is a societal breaking point, what the sources call the 9-meal reality.
The Sofronos report quantified this. It found that societal stability just collapses somewhere between the 58th and 72nd hour after the supply chain stops. This lines up perfectly with the 9 meals from anarchy concept. It's about human physiology.
What's a driver there, physiologically?
Acute starvation. The psychological drivers, irritability, aggression, poor decision-making, they all peak as your blood sugar crashes and cortisol spikes. After about 2 or 3 days, people shift from passive fear to desperate, proactive violence. For the commander, T plus 58 hours is the inflection point, when contact shifts from low-level looters to something much more dangerous.
And the ABM modeling found a very specific and maybe counterintuitive high-threat actor. It's not who you'd think.
The results were stark, yeah. The highest threat index, a D-score of 8.4 out of 10, was not assigned to organized gangs. It was assigned to the unprepared suburban father, age 35 to 50, armed. These individuals don't have deep stockpiles, but they have high family dependency. Kids who are hungry, they have vehicles, tools, and often high-quality firearms.
Why does the model rank them as more dangerous than, say, a professional criminal group?
Unpredictability and motivation. An organized group, a wolf, is predictable. They go for logical targets, fuel, comms, ammo. The desperate father is driven by pure protective instinct and starvation. A moral override kicks in. A law-abiding person becomes volatile, unpredictable, and far more reckless. They pose a huge problem for perimeter control.
And there's a factor that accelerates all of this desperation, the EBT blackout multiplier.
This is where the cyber attack connects directly back to the human wave. The collapse is accelerated because the same React 2 shell vulnerability that hits the power grid also hits the state-level EBT and SNAP benefit processors. Many of those payment processing dashboards run on the same vulnerable Next.js framework.
So it's not the power outage that stops EBT cards from working. It's the specific cyber flaw hitting the financial side.
Exactly. And this creates millions of hungry dependents overnight in the big cities. The assessment is that widespread high-intensity riots kick off in major urban centers in just 36 to 48 hours, a full day earlier than the 9-meal reality would predict. This forces urban law enforcement to focus entirely on riot control, which thins the veil between the garrison commander and the kinetic threats heading his way.
Okay, let's bring it back to the Grants Paseo. The commander has set up the Josephine County Fairgrounds as a logistics hub, an Alamo. The idea is to use the local Walmart as a decoy to draw threats away. Did the simulation show that this tactic works?
It did, but with a critical distinction. The Walmart Supercenter decoy at Exit 58 absolutely traps the sheep. The Class A and B unorganized looters, they will clog that area, fighting over low-value retail goods. It's an effective distraction for the desperate masses.
But the wolf, the organized threat, they see right through that.
Correct. The Class C, predatory elements TDA, disciplined criminal groups, they bypass the retail chaos completely. They know that canned goods and TVs are not a strategic objective. They're going for fuel depots, armories, communication nodes, high-value logistics. The decoy works on the crowd, but not on the professionals.
So if the organized threat bypasses the decoy, how fast do they get to the commander's main position in Merlin? What's the time to contact?
This is the single most critical number for the commander's initial defense. First hostile contact at Merlin Exit 61 is projected at T plus 2.53 hours. That's 1930 PST on Christmas Eve. It means the Ionios Vanguard Fortress will face organized predatory teams less than 3 hours after the lights go out, possibly before the local EOC even knows what's happening.
Okay, moving off the I-5 corridor, what about the main fail-safe route, Highway 199 to the coast? The intel says the primary threat there isn't TDA.
On Highway 199, the danger shifts entirely. It's a high risk of blue-on-green fratricide, a local resource war. The battle space is a conflict zone between two very different, heavily armed groups. Local State of Jefferson militias and entrenched Chinese transnational criminal organizations, TCOs, defending massive illegal marijuana grows.
Let's clarify that TCO profile. We're not talking about the PLA, the Chinese military, right?
No, not at all. These are triad-affiliated criminal groups, but they often use retired PLA logistics officers to manage their operations. They're disciplined. Their threat is almost entirely incidental contact. If the commander sends a Grey Ghost Lovis convoy down 199, the TCOs are going to assume it's a rival crew trying to steal their crop. They will open fire without warning.
And that accidental conflict is a huge risk. But what about the ultimate asymmetric threat? The one that changes the rules of engagement for everyone?
That's the pivot to using illicit fentanyl and carfentanil precursors as a weapon of mass destruction for area denial. The Red Team analysis confirmed this is the logical next step for groups like TDA. They know they can't win a straight-up gunfight against a fortified position, so they pivot to chemical warfare to disable the fortress without a direct assault.
And the goal isn't necessarily mass casualties, it's about logistics.
Precisely. You use an aerosolized version of carfentanil not to kill everyone, but to trigger a mandatory AZMAT containment zone around a critical supply hub, like the fairgrounds. If you contaminate the air intakes of that warehouse, it's operationally dead. All the food, water, medicine inside is trapped in a hot zone. You've disabled the entire supply chain and accelerated starvation in the surrounding area without firing a shot.
And the legal framework for this is already in place. The president has designated illicit fentanyl as a WMD.
And that legal reality is everything. It bypasses posse comitatus. It unlocks Title X military authorities for domestic engagement. The rules of engagement instantly shift from arrest to neutralize. A hostile drone with an aerial payload is now a legitimate military target.
Okay, let's talk mitigation. The survival of this entire AO depends on preemptive action. The first command is to execute island mode. Why the urgency to pull the plug before the grid even fails?
That command has to be executed now, immediately. It's about protecting your electronics from the physics of grid failure. The commander must disconnect the Merlin HQ and the fairgrounds from the grid. When the grid trips, there's a high probability of a final catastrophic power surge. The sources call it the last breath spike. That surge will fry any unprotected electronics, comms gear, medical equipment servers, all gone. Getting on your own clean generator power before the collapse is the only way to safeguard those critical assets.
Let's talk about hardening the fairgrounds, the Alamo. With the WMD threat, it needs a full CBRN retrofit. What are the orders?
The fairgrounds has to become a clean box. Phase 1 is sealing. You have to seal all external intakes, vents, windows, everything with 6 mil poly sheeting. Then Phase 2, you create positive air pressure. You install industrial fans to push filtered air out of the building. This pressure differential ensures that if a chemical cloud drifts over, it can't get sucked inside.
In every vehicle, every person coming in has to be checked.
Absolutely. A full Deacon airlock is mandatory.
Yeah, okay.
And that includes fentanyl swipe tests on every incoming vehicle before it's allowed into the secure zone. If it tests positive, it gets diverted. No exceptions.
Water is the long-term kill vector. What are the immediate orders for the commander on water security?
He has to commandeer water trucks and secure every available cistern now. Before municipal pressure drops at that T+6 hour mark, that 6-hour window is the only chance to fill those reserves quickly. After that, it's too late. The Merlin HQ has well water, which is good, but the fairgrounds needs to be completely self-sufficient.
All right, the hardest problem, refugees. Once the power is out, everyone is going to see that Ionios Vanguard has lights and water. How do you manage the inevitable siege?
The strategy is hard target, soft redirect. The Merlin HQ, the command node, is the hard target. It has to stay dark, stay invisible. The Josephine County Fairgrounds is the Alamo. It's the managed pressure release valve. And you manage that pressure using the biohazard quarantine PSYOP.
Using fear as a deterrent, how does that message get out effectively?
Disinformation. You broadcast over unencrypted channels, like CB radio, that the fairgrounds is a biohazard quarantine zone. This is a crucial psychological operation. You use the public's fear of contagion to keep them from storming your logistics hub. People might be desperate for food, but they won't risk walking into a chemical hot zone.
So the fairgrounds draws all the attention, protecting the real HQ. But how do you guide the non-hostile refugees there without giving away your own position?
That's the map drop method. It's a low-vis tactic. A small team leaves hand-drawn maps at key choke points, like outside the looted Walmart. The map only shows the location of the quarantine relief zone, which is the fairgrounds. It's a way to guide the sheep away from your fortress without ever making direct contact.
Finally, let's nail down the force continuum and rules of engagement. This has to be crystal clear, especially with militias and the WMD threat in play.
It's meticulously segmented. ROE Zone 3 is for your Class A and B actors. The looters, the desperate suburbanites. Engagement there is almost exclusively non-lethal chemical CS for crowd dispersal. Lethal force is restricted to the direct defense of human life.
So to be clear on property.
The order is unambiguous. Do not use lethal force to protect private property. Not for a pallet of MREs, not for a truck. Only to save a life or protect the core mission.
And then there's ROE Zone 4, lethal force.
That is reserved for Class C actors. TDA, cartel, and most importantly, WMD delivery systems. Lethal force is authorized to prevent the deployment of a WMD. That means if a hostile drone is approaching the water intake or the fairgrounds air vents, the WMD designation allows the commander to engage and destroy it. That drone is not just trespassing, it is a weapon.
The biggest friction point, though, might be internal. The risk of blue-on-green fratricide, the guards shooting at local militias by mistake.
That risk is extremely high in this area. Mitigation has to happen now while comms are up. The commander needs to register Ionios Vanguard with the Josephine County EOC immediately, get on the official IFF list. And they need to coordinate with vetted local militia cells, issue visual markers, something like specific color armbands, to deconflict. Trust and identification are survival imperatives.
The commander is essentially a warlord at this point, balancing military necessity with incredibly complex local politics.
He is. He's the warlord of Merlin. And he's inheriting the entire burden of continuity for that region. So, to synthesize the commander's intent here, the intelligence confirms this storm, the grid collapse, it's just cover for a deliberate takedown of the Western Interconnection.
Oh.
The objective isn't just to survive, it's to maintain command and logistic superiority against a predictable, multi-layered attack. This is not random, it is coordinated destruction.
The sources acknowledge the immense weight of this. The philosophy for the command is laid out in the Leonidas report.
The two final charges are guard the oikos, protect the home, the fortress, your people, and more importantly, accept the burden. And that's the hardest part. The commander will have to make choices about who eats and who starves, who gets medical care and who doesn't. Those choices, in the moment, will define the entire operation.
And finally, for the listener, for the commander, there is one last real-time indicator, a sign that this has spiraled from a regional crisis to something much, much worse. the exodus of the oligarchs.
You have to watch the flight trackers. The key indicator is the hex code N628TS. That is Elon Musk's Gulfstream. The other big players, they're likely already in their bunkers in Hawaii or New Zealand. Musk is the outlier. He's holding his position in Austin, likely managing the Starlink network, which might be the only comms backbone left.
So his movement is the ultimate tell. What does it signal?
If you see N628TS file a flight plan out of Austin for a deep bunker location, if he decides to step off the grid himself, that's the canary in the coal mine. It signals the situation has escalated from a containable grid collapse to total continuity of government failure. And that is the definitive signal for the garrison commander to stop waiting for help, to execute his breakout plan. That is the signal to step off the low-vis gray ghost convoy. That's the moment to stop repairing and start moving.
The watch is active. We are 6 days from 0 hour. Stay informed, secure your perimeter, and stay analog. This has been The Deep Dive.
Hear, O Israel, our Lord God is one. You shall love your God with
All of your heart, mind, soul, and might.
likewise. Love your countrymen as yourself.
This is the summation of law. Execute.